Hi, this is the History of Israel podcast, an Each My Own Beat podcast. Over the coming weeks, months, and years, we'll be discussing the history of Israel. This is not a podcast to say which side is right, which side is wrong. It's not a podcast to talk about the war which is happening in Palestine. It's just simply the history of Israel.
Welcome back to episode 33 of the History of Israel podcast, public buildings during the late Antiquity. In the city, the strained economies of Roman overexpansion arrested growth. Almost all new public building in the late Antiquity came directly or indirectly from the emperors of imperial officials. Attempts were made to retain what they had already had there. The supply of free grain and oil to 20% of the population of Rome remained intact the last decade of the 5th century. It was once thought that the elite and rich had withdrawn the private luxuries of their numerous villas and townhouses. Scholarly opinion had revised this. They monopolized the higher offices in the imperial administration, but they were removed from military command by the late 3rd century. Their focus had turned to preserving their vast wealth rather than fighting for it. The basilica, which had functioned as a law court or imperial reception of foreign dignitaries, became the primary public building in the 4th century. Due to the stress on the civil finances, cities spent money on walls, maintaining baths and markets at the expense of the amphitheaters, temples, libraries, porticos, gymnasia, concerts, and lecture halls, theaters, and other amenities of public life. In any case, as Christianity took over, many of these buildings, which were associated with pagan cults, were neglected in favor of building churches and donating to the poor. The Christian basilica was copied from the civic structures with variations. The bishops took their chair in the apse reserved in the secular structures up for the magistrate, or the emperor himself. As the representative here, and how Christ penetrator, the ruler of all, his characteristics late antique icon. These statical basilicas, e.g., St. John Lateran and St. Peter's in Rome, were themselves outdone by Justinian's Hagia Sophia, a staggering display of later Roman Byzantine power and architectural taste, though the building was not architecturally a basilica. In the former Western Roman Empire, almost no buildings were constructed from the 5th century. A most outstanding example is the Basilica of San Vital in Ravenna, constructed in 530 and cost 26,000 gold solidi, or 3,600 Roman pounds of gold. City life in the East, though negatively affected by the plague in the 6th and 7th centuries, finally collapsed due to the Slavic invasions in the Balkans and the Persian destructions in Anatolia in the 620s. City life continued in Syria, Jordan, and Palestine into the 8th. In the later 6th century, street construction was still undertaken in the Caesarea Maritima in Palestine, and Edessa was able to deflect Chosroes I, with a massive payment in gold in 540 and 544 before it was overrun in 609.
This has been the History of Israel podcast. Check back every Wednesday for new episodes. We're available on Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. We also have each episode streaming on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. We're available on eattomyownbeat.com as well as the History of Israel podcast on Facebook.